All right, guys, welcome to this episode of the Mission Debrief. We have a special episode here, not our usual live event due to time zones, but I brought on the Art of War Team 1 and part of Team 2, who just partook in the Gladiator Gaming team event in Brisbane, Australia. So, how you doing, guys? Welcome to the show.
Good, man.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, who do we have
Not
here?
too bad, mate.
So, who do we have here from the Art of War teams?
You've got Aron Green from Brisbane, Australia.
James
Hey, but
Keller.
Dan,
Sorry, Dan.
James and Dan.
Yeah.
all right.
James
you got
Keller.
Dan Savage here from the Art of War team as well.
Awesome. It's pretty wild how many people are in the Art of War ecosystem now.
I'm not technically in the Art of War ecosystem.
You're
I
in
was
the
sort
team.
of brought on
In the team.
as a scrub.
Part of the ship, part of the crew. You're in it. So you guys had a really cool event, it sounds like. I know I was watching part of it on Twitch. For those of you who don't know, Art of War Down Under is the channel we're talking about. You guys, I know the streaming was much more active before everything happened. And in the show notes, I'll put a link to the videos. I don't know how many videos there were, but there was a lot of content for that event because you guys had like 4 different tables streaming, something like that.
Yeah, so we've got all 3 rounds covered on the playback videos on Twitch, and yeah, we were trying for the first time to have 4 different cameras going, so just to cover the whole experience of the team event. So all 4 tables of a round. So you have all 8 players playing their games and being able to switch and actually see the round evolve from start to finish was really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. You don't usually get to see that kind of tension in a normal game because if someone's up, 30-8, well, you sort of know how that's going to go. So for the viewers, I know a lot of the people watching probably from America who may not have been to many team events. Can you just briefly describe what kind of event this was?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. So the team format's really interesting. There's multiple different ways to run a teams event, but in particular, this one was 4 people per team. You have a captain, 3 team members, and then obviously just build your lists. And where it becomes interesting is through the matchup process. So matchup process, pre-event, you work with your team to understand all the other teams and their lists and kind of get an understanding of what matchups you'd like. But the way it unfolds is each captain picks a champion, which gets put off to the side, and then they have a dice roll. And the captain that loses that dice roll puts up one of their 3 remaining lists, and then the other captain pairs into that, and then they alternate from there, matching until everyone has got a game, and both champions get paired against each other. So
champion versus champion, but it's random.
That's right.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. Obviously, you're trying to get the best matchups for your team and trying to, I guess, guess and strategize on what they're going to put up. And then if they do that, what do you put in? So yeah, it actually sets up rounds. And if you get good matchups, the round can be easier. If you don't get the matchups you're after, then it can be much harder.
So do you, before the matchup, but before you even announce who is the person you're putting up, do you know the mission and the terrain of the board? Do you know that stuff beforehand?
Yeah, so you know the mission, and you've got the 4 tables, and as the games get allocated, who's playing who, they pick a table.
Oh, they pick. Okay.
So there's some strategy in there as well. Taking, if there's a army in your team that doesn't really care what the terrain is, they can take one of the more difficult ones for another member of your team. So there's and generally you'd have a light table, 2 mediums, and a heavy kind of terrain table. So.
Right. Okay, yeah, that's pretty similar to what the team tournaments I've seen here do as well. So when you're playing the game with all four matches going on, these tournaments use a very different scoring system than us in the States are used to. It's more like you have your main score, like your 40K score, and that score is what translated into a final score. That's what, between 20 and 0. Is that correct? Or if you can explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So essentially, what they do is you take your in-game VP, and then there's a table that kind of converts that into what your points for the game would be. So each game that's played in the round is worth 20 points, and that's divided equally, or it's divided between each player. So if you had a draw, for example, it'd be 10 points to each player. And then, or if you won by say 51 or more points, that's a 20-0 win.
Yeah, it's a big win.
And you need 45 points as a team to win the round. So there's 80 points on offer, and then you get 45, and that's a win for the round. So that's essentially what you're aiming for.
Okay. Yeah, that does make things a lot closer too. Like you don't just have to. Winning's good, but like with matchups, just even if you're sort of designed to take the fall, if you can just score, within almost just within 20 points, you get, it says here like 13-7. That's pretty good, because it's pretty easy to often score maybe within 30 points even. You still get five points. So that'll help the team win the round, I imagine. And it's not just a loss automatically.
Yeah, and it brings a lot of different things out. Instead, in a singles event, like you lose a game, your weekend's kind of over. Whereas in a team environment, if you do lose a match, but you stopped the opponent getting like 20 round points, and you scrape say 7 points off them, then that's huge, because you're building towards that total of 45, and that those 7 points in a bad matchup for you could be the thing that decides whether your team wins or draws a round or even loses a round. So
yeah, that's, like I said, it just sounds more fun for everyone involved. I mean, solo tournaments are great in their competitive nature, and it's good to hang out with all your friends, but this creates, I guess it's less stressful for each individual member. Like you're not just, like you said, you're not just, well, you either sink or swim on your own. You're at least, you can do well, but you don't have to be exceptional every game. The luck doesn't have to be with you every roll. So how many people was in this event again? You said it was 40 people?
40 people, yeah.
40? Okay. That's pretty good. What's the tournament scene like normally, like before, last year? Like how many events would you guys go to in a normal year before?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
I'd say average people would probably turn up to about 5 events.
Okay.
People who are doing a little bit of traveling would be upwards of 8 or 9 events for the year.
Nice.
It's in the Australian scene. There's a lot of push for making the representative teams and getting access to events like our Masters and things like that. And then that will further expose you to more like sort of private gaming events. Another thing I will add for this particular event, a really nice touch that the organizer Josh put in, was that 2 representative players could only participate in each team, which helped spread the talent pool of sorts, especially in Queensland, to start inviting newer players back into the game to work with some of the people that take this a lot more seriously.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I see that here in the rules, which is pretty cool. Like you said, that definitely, because you often have in a certain play group, you have the few amount of people that are just play the game the most. They win all the tournaments, and that can be a bit of a downer for anyone that wants to jump in and have some kind of decent showing. If they know that, well, these 4 people are going to be there and they're just going to dominate everything, I'll never be able to get on the podium. So that's a pretty cool idea. I like that.
Well, an exciting thing that I really like to see is a lot of the time with very well-known talented players, you will get a player who is a little bit newer to the game or not really in the tournament scene, and they're beaten before the game even starts.
Oh, yeah.
While in a team environment with the support of 2 other more veteran style players, those players are pushed and basically given the reins to push that matchup, and they start actually seeing how talented they might be at the game when the pressure's sort of rained off them a little bit. It was really exciting to see at the matchups. I saw some players who normally would drop a game really push for points, which was exciting to see.
Nice. Yeah, I've realized that too here in our local games where we have people who the stress of playing a competitive game against a well-known player, they just play totally different games. Like when they're playing casually here, they'll play everything really good. They'll remember stuff, but the moment they get into a game with someone who is really known to be good, they forget everything. And that's mostly the pressure. So if you can reduce that pressure, like I said, a lot of those new players will enjoy the game more. Also, as I've told people how to enjoy events, also is if you correctly set your expectations, and the event itself is better. And if you know that it's not all on you, you can be like, okay, well my expectations now are just do as best as I can, and all of a sudden, way more fun.
Yeah, and it basically brings out that teamwork environment in people where they're like, oh, everyone's counting on me for this, and I'm going to push it extra, and they finally get to see a new gear in their game that they never knew they had.
Yeah, we were going to have a team tournament here a few months ago, and we were bringing on a few people that really don't go to a lot of events, so they were really looking forward to it and being on our team with a few experienced guys. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. But maybe next year, and those same people hopefully will want to play again. So,
Yeah.
so the event was 40 people. I remember before this, you guys were saying how the next event might be like 50 people or more. Is that the usual larger events?
I
Yeah.
think, is it 14 confirmed teams, Aaron?
14.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So from 10 to 14. Okay. So that'd be, about 56. Okay. That's pretty good. That'd be a nice event. Did you guys have a lot of is it a large venue you have that you can keep expanding for this, or like a different venue each time?
Yeah, the venue's able to accommodate, I think, up to the largest we've had at that event at that venue was about 75 players for an event last year. So
That's good for a team event. That's cool. All right, so let's go into the event itself. As I briefly mentioned earlier, you guys were on two different teams because you had a lot of people. So why don't we start with James here? You were on the first team, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was invited on the Art of War 1 team to play in the teams tournament. I'm normally a sort of middle-ranked sort of player in the Brisbane scene. I normally finish sort of middle of the road every tournament. I'm a 2-2 or a 3-2 or a 2-3 sort of player.
Yeah.
And it was good to get a spot on the Art of War 1 team.
That's cool.
And get exposure to, how the more professional players do pairings and write army lists and sort of design army lists for teams, because it's completely different.
Professional. The only
He's
professional
definitely not talking about
will
me.
ever make money.
Yeah. Semi-professional, I guess.
Yeah. That's cool. We have a lot of players here who are, I think the competitive community, especially now that it's way more like social media driven, tends to get down on like people who finish in the middle of the pack, which is the vast majority of players.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not all about going 6-0, 5-0, because often the best games are not necessarily if you're winning. Is your relative skill level similar to the other person, and 2-3 or 3-2. That's where you're finding the closest skill level. So those beyond the first round, maybe the games can be a lot more enjoyable. So you played what, Necrons?
I played Necrons. I played a Canopsec, sort of dubbed it, style Necron list. So do you want me to go through the list?
Yeah, go through the list.
Yeah, so the list was a patrol and an outrider. So in the patrol, I just had one unit of immortals to take up the troop tax. and then a Chronomancer, had the Veil of Darkness and an Entropic Staff. I then had, I'll bring it up.
Was this 1,500 points?
No, 2,000.
Oh, okay. Never mind. You lost 3 CP for all your other stuff. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So Chronomancer, I had a unit of 3 spiders, a unit of 10 Lich Guard with sword and board.
Mm-hmm.
I had... I'll go through it. Yeah, hold on. I'll stuff this one up. All right, so 2 units of 7 swarms, 3 units of 5 wraiths, 2 technomancers, one with the Canoptic control node and the warlord trait, which was Thrall the Silent King, to give a boost of 3 inches of the control node's aura. Failsafe Overcharger, which gives extra attack to Canoptic units, or 1 Canoptic unit in the command phase, and plus D3 attacks for monsters. So that's good for buffing spiders or wraiths.
Yeah, right.
2 units of 5 Scorpec Destroyers. Oof. And that's pretty much the list. So
yeah,
the dynasty was relentlessly expansionist and eternal conquerors. So the 6-inch pre-move and OBSEC. The strength of this list is that it's super fast. The idea behind it was you can, if you get first turn and you're up against a shooting heavy army, you can really use the extra movement to dive into units, touch them, try to wrap them, get into as much of their stuff as they can,
right,
to sort of stop them sort of shooting you off the board. Because there was a lot of lists there that they had the potential to do that. For example, AdMech, there was a lot of shooting heavy AdMech lists.
Well, they're one of my main armies, and they can definitely shoot armies off the board, but they're vulnerable to getting to them really quickly.
Yeah, and if you got second turn, you could use that 6-inch movement to sort of dive back into cover and protect yourself a little bit. Sort of try to save as many of your assets as you can for later in the game, where you could really sort of move out and control the board. So I guess the tactics behind the list was I sort of had to make a decision at the start of each matchup whether I was going to sort of push real hard, or if I didn't think I could get the win, play as cagey as I could and just score as many primary and secondary points as I could, just to try to score points for my team, essentially.
Yeah, that's I think that's a cool thing about team tournaments is I think if people are viewing the list after this video, is that a lot of these lists can seem very skewed in terms of like, well, you're making a really unbalanced list. Yeah, well, that's fine because you're working as a team to do certain matchups. Like your list is really good because I think we were talking before. Your list is really good at killing probably just Marines. I mean, everything in the army looks like it does at least 2 damage.
Yeah, so it's really good at killing toughness 4 Marines, not so great at killing toughness 5 Marines sometimes. I find that the race can bounce. Hitting on 4s, unless they're in that aura, really sort of punishes them. And yeah.
Wow.
And they've gone to a 4-up Invon, so that hurts a little bit. But the destroyers are pretty good against toughness 5 Marines, but you need those reroll auras, and that list sort of really doesn't have a lot of those.
Oh, because there's no destroyer lord or whatever.
Yeah, there's also no also don't have any command protocols on that list because I don't have a lord.
Yeah, noble.
So, noble.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a lot. Like I said, it's a lot of heavy damage. You can really contest the middle, punish people for getting a little too greedy there. But obviously, absolutely no shooting. I mean, I'm not counting the Cryptex. Their shooting is a joke in terms of like an actual shooting army.
Yeah, well, they managed to kill 2 Canoptic Reanimators in my final game. So the Entropic Lancers were a little bit clutch there in that last game.
Yeah, it's just not that many shots, but that's pretty cool. So let's go to Aron there. So it looks like you're playing some Orks. Looks like a bunch of them here.
1 or 2. Yeah, there's a few there. So just to quickly touch on James's list, it was really, really good to see him play that. It's one of those lists that just goes in there and just is, you can guarantee it's going to score X amount of points, no problem. Like it was awesome.
Because he'll basically kill him. He'll be able to kill stuff and get secondaries.
Well, it's super resilient too. So pre-game move, take the mid board, take objectives, start scoring some primary and banking secondaries, especially the Necron ones. Like it just scores. So it's very hard to get a 20 against it.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is something I really like about it.
That's cool.
But moving on to the Orks. So I took a Goff's battalion. I took a big mech in mega armor, along with Gazgal and a weird boy. So one of the great things about that weird boy is that I made him a warped, and I took Bull Charge, which is a spell that I've never really seen used much, but
I haven't.
it actually it's fantastic. So what it does is you cast it on a unit, and that unit gets essentially a guaranteed 7-inch charge. So no matter,
I remember that now.
If you roll under 7, or if there's modifiers that modify you back under 7, it still counts as 7, which can be extremely clutch in setting up some charges when you really need. You have to have that charge go off, or it's a backup, right? Because if it doesn't go off, then you've still got the charge roll itself, and here we go, and you just kind of making that charge more reliable.
So so it ignores like forests and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if you say you roll 7 on the dice and it modifies it back to 5, it counts as 7.
Yeah. That's pretty good. So that's like a 9 then, basically. That's pretty good. Okay.
It's good. Obviously, like if it was anything more, like if it was 9, it'd be pretty busted coming out of Deep Strike or something like that. But 7 is like one of those numbers that is still quite fallible.
Oh yeah.
So, or if there's a crater involved, a forest, and
that's what I mean. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Okay.
And Gaz is pretty self-explanatory. And the big mech, I give him the warlord trait, so he can do advance and charge just like a regular war boss. He's got the killer claw. He's a beat stick in himself, and he's got the force field, which is pretty handy. And then from there, I've got basically 5 lots of 30 Orks, all upgrade to Scar Boys, Slugger Chopper with a kill saw on the knob. One of the squads is 29 just for points, and the knob's got a big chopper, but essentially it's 150 really angry strength 5 boys. And then I just round out the list with 3 MSU 5-man commando squads and a pain boy and 2 deathcopters, and they're simply there for performing actions, engage on all fronts points,
right?
Just little jobs.
Yeah, one of my friends ran a very, very, very similar list, and with the Scar Boys, I mean, Orks in general, like a basic Ork boy unit, bounces off a lot of units, but Scar Boys with Gazgal, man, they did so much damage all the time that they are quite scary. Hopefully, when the Ork Codex gets redone, GW realizes that basic Ork boys are not very scary. They need to be like Scar Boys or something like that.
Yeah, the Strength 5 really tips a lot of engagements in their favor and starts making some of the maths on some units, particularly Marines, a lot better.
Yeah,
and just Gaz has added, reroll 1s, the Goff's exploiting 6s, things like that. It really starts to add up into some pretty silly numbers, to the point that I don't even bother taking Warpath on the weird boy because it's just redundant.
Yeah. So rounding off this team, you also got, it looks like you also had a White Scars army. I'm not going to go too much in depth into these lists, but you had a White Scars army that was running a lot of attack bikes, 3 units of 3 attack bikes, 3 units of Inceptors, and then they had some aggressors, Blade Guard veterans, assault centurions. That's a bit surprising. And then an apothecary with
they're the secret sauce in that list.
The
assault cents are money.
Even after because they got changed quite a lot.
They don't have core, which is not a problem. With how this list operates and with how White Scars operate, they do phenomenal damage, almost to the point where I think they're highly underrated at the moment. And one of the tricks that Steve really likes to employ with this list is, if he goes second and people overcommit, then those assault scents are in turn one almost every time. And if they make the mistake of even killing one of those assault scents, that's an extra, I think, 4 inches movement that they can get when rezzed with the Apothecary, because they advance and then you res. Okay. So it really starts to set up a cascading effect of, those getting into combat quite quickly.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, that's I mean, I said I haven't seen them since they got nerfed in the Space Marine book, but with White Scars, everything's better when you can advance and still charge. I mean, it makes everything a lot more playable. And then it looks like your last teammate was Eric, and he took Sisters of Battle.
Yeah,
this army. It's fairly that's a lot of canonesses. What's up with that? That's 3 canonesses. Wow.
Well, they're all very killy.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
And then obviously you've got Sisters, so even if they die, they get up at the end of the phase.
Yeah.
So it baits people into thinking about assassinate, and a lot of the damage also comes from those canonesses.
So real quick on the Sisters, how did the Mortifiers do? I keep hearing they're really good.
I can't speak to the expertise that Eric would with them, but I know he used them to protect his flanks, and used them to take out particular threats. I played against some Mortifiers in round 3, and let me just tell you that the amount of attacks that they can spit out is just literally obscene, and they do quite a bit of work.
Okay, so now we're going to Dan in the Overflow team. You're going here. So what army did you play?
I played my Chaos Demons for this event. So basically, I did a different take on my Beast of Nurgle list.
Yeah.
This time opting out for a little bit more damage, running 2 Keepers of Secrets in a patrol with 10 Demon Amps. The rest of the list, we had the Lord of Change. I had Horticus Slimix. I had a Bloodletter Bomb with 20, 2 units of 4 Nurglings. I had a 5-man Flamer squad. I had 2 Exalted Flamers, which were Raisin Banners, and also just to provide damage in different phases. And then we had a unit of 8 Beasts and a unit of 5 Beasts.
Okay. It's, I don't see Chaos Demon armies a lot. I mean, you use the units that are really good. Like beasts are phenomenal with how resilient they are. I don't see a lot of the Exalted Flamers though. Were those? So you were just using those to hold backfield objectives and do psychic powers and random shooting?
Well, they can raise banners for you, so they're a very useful banner raiser because they can't be targeted. And then you've got the added luxury of having high AP shots, and also doing a little bit more damage in the shooting phase. Basically, it was just a little utility that I like to add to my pocket, especially when I'm playing in a teams event when I can come up against Satans, Gazkul, and things like that, because it starts making my opponent be a little bit more honest with those units when there is a chance that they could die in one phase.
Okay. Well, that's it's good. Like I said, it's good to see a variety of lists, which team tournaments get to do. So what were the other armies on your team?
So we had Joshua McGowan, who is on Art of War as well. He ran his Necron list, which was basically a Necron Warriors list. Very much a board control list, very solid with how it scores its points.
Right.
He in our team environment was our throw up. A lot of the times he was wearing those matchups that no one else wanted, and played those games very well. We had Paul Gurney, who was running his Iron Hands. It was kind of a mixed bag Iron Hands list, but he's a proven player with that list and plays it very, very well. And then rounding it out, we had Andrew Kennedy running a robot AdMech list where he
Oh,
had the Castellan robots,
those are tough.
which a lot of people thought was a mistake, but the robots performed. They're they are still very viable. He ran them as Lucius, so
Okay.
their survivability was pushed even more so.
Yeah, 'cause he can de-strike.
And basically, he was picking the right times to anchor down and get double
Mhm.
shots when the bots had their optimal sort of kill zones.
Yep.
And then, aside from that, he had the AdMech Raiders that were screening for his bots when he needed it.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of the time, people are still getting familiar with the rules where touching vehicles, you're going to get shot by phosphor blasters
Yeah.
from the bots.
Yeah, you don't just wanna touch robots anymore. They'll be fine with that. I mean, they'll
Yeah,
support you. Previously, they couldn't do anything, but now they can hit you with, like, 120 shots still. So,
yeah.
still gonna
I and
do that
and
again.
it's and it was one of those lists that that was a hammer in our arsenal that a lot of people hadn't sort of teched for.
Mhm.
Um, that was also the matchup where they were, putting up against Necrons and things like that. But at the event, he found himself in a lot of Grey Knight matchups,
Hmm.
where he had access to a Bore the Witch and a lot of things where if one unit was found itself anywhere in the open, it got shot off the board,
Yeah.
and you pick up easy points that way. It's a very awkward list to deal with.
Okay. Well, speaking of since we got through the list, let's go right into the actual tournament itself. So, let's stay with you, man.
Yep.
So why don't we talk about your matchup? So, like, what was your round 1 like?
So our round one was the Northern Alliance. This was a hobby group on the northern part of Brisbane. Couple of well-established players that play in a lot of events. I basically that was my chance to prove myself for matchups, and I was pretty happy with how we sort of weighed up into them. Josh picked up a very tough game in the Blood Angels with Sangor bombs, which caused the AdMech a little bit of issues, but he managed to get it to a pretty much a stalemate game. I had a match up against Chaos Space Marines,
Hmm.
which I turned into a bit of a landside victory. But a lot of with a lot of their matchups, we were kind of looking at their Grey Knight list, which was their most veteran player, and he ended up getting the Castellan robots, and the Castellan robots very much shot him off the board in that game.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy to get those secondary points when all his units are psychers too. All you gotta do is kill a few of them.
Yeah, and it's such a tough position to be in as a Grey Knight player or a player playing Psychers when you have a Bore the Witch against you.
Yeah.
It even tends to when you're running things like Keepers of Secrets, Lord of Changes, whatever. When they're worth 5 points a pop, you start really rethinking your decisions. With Grey Knights being 3 points a unit, it just doesn't let you utilize the army that you wish you could utilize it, and it forces you into a stalemate matchup. When the unfortunate thing is James had to push for points in that matchup, which then turned his match into a landslide victory for our AdMech player.
Well, that's very advantageous on your end. So you played against Chaos Space Marines. You said your game was a bit of a landslide. But
Yep.
what? So why don't we touch on what secondaries you took and like your overall deployment strategy and game strategy against this list?
So with the list, he had Abaddon. It was a Black Legion, which I was very excited for. I don't get to come across the
Mhm.
table with Abaddon. I played a lot of Chaos though, so I was very familiar with what all his tricks and what he had access to. An interesting combo that he did have was a Lord Discordant with two Forge Fiends
Oh,
and a
wow.
Defiler. So
Expensive.
he was running a Master of Possession with Cursed Earth. So there was
Okay.
a big buffing
Yeah. Yeah.
area buff going off on these demon engines. The issue being though is as soon as I saw one character or one demon engine deploy, I knew where all the demon engines were going.
Right.
And basically, what happened there was the beasts took that side of the flank, as I still have to have something sitting on that side. And the keepers and the lock took over the other flank, which he had a very soft left side to his flank. He was basically just had two Chaos Space Marine squads just covering an objective.
Right.
And with that, I took quarters,
Mhm.
banners, and I cannot quite remember my
Was it-
last
Did
one.
you take like Bring It Down or anything? Because those are some expensive vehicles there.
I don't think it was Bring It Down.
Because you weren't
I
actually trying
believe
to
it,
kill
oh,
them.
actually, it was Mental Interrogation.
Oh, okay.
So mental interrogation, I've been taking as a bit of a staple for the list. Very, very easy to score that secondary,
Yeah.
as you don't need line of sight to pull it off. And picking up 3 points if my opponent starts being aggressive with his Lord Discordant or his Demon Prince or his Abaddon. And basically, it lets you just start going, well, if you overcommit, I'm going to get 3 points per phase. But outside of that, is the keepers ran up. I smited one of the units of Chaos Space Marines with
Yeah.
uh, the Lord of Change, the two keepers, and took out one unit, charged the other unit. The Nurglings also got onto the objective. So from from that sort of point, I was took his whole left flank and then just
Mhm.
closed in on him, forcing him to one quarter.
Yeah.
He kept his obliterators and terminators and Abaddon in deep strike, and basically I just spread across the board, covering the entirety of the board, bar little pockets where I wanted his things to go. And he'd chosen scramblers and things like that. So basically, I knew where he was going to try and go, and could keep him to those sort of points on the
Right.
board. Once the obliterators dropped down, I just sort of left them on that flank, and then just went after the rest of his army.
Yeah. It
Um,
sounds like those demon engines would have a really hard time killing 10 beasts.
yeah, they actually did really well though. I
Wow.
The first turn, I think I lost like 3 or 4 beasts, and I was like,
Wow.
"Wow, this might not go the way I think
Yeah.
it's gonna go." But then, basically, once the beasts get knocked down to that manageable number, you start using the ruins for
Mhm.
obscuring, and I start forcing his beast to move, his demon engines to start moving around.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like you moved up one flank, pretty much annihilated it, and then trapped him, so he couldn't really do
Yeah,
much. And that gave you full board control. You maxed your secondaries. So what was the like the final score in that game?
it was a 20-0.
Okay, so that was a pretty big win then.
Yeah,
So you scored over 50,
yeah.
50 points difference. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was about 94 to
Ooh.
24 or something.
Yeah, so he barely got any primary then it sounds like.
Yeah, and to be honest, he to his credit, he played it. He really tried to push out. As soon as he started getting caught in the corner, he started being more aggressive with his
Right.
defiler. Um, but it basically the only units he had to charge were either beasts or the Lord of Change, which both of those options are pretty bad.
Yeah, it sounds like I don't know if it would have helped, but I would have because your shooting is negligible. It sounds like he may have been served better by keeping all those units on the board. Um,
Yep.
because Abaddon can do a lot of damage to a keeper's secrets. I imagine if he's able to get that charge off. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And like the thing that people were forgetting with keepers, and I sort of had seen in our Queensland scene, is people are very aggressive with their keepers and
yeah,
almost just run them straight up. Basically, I was being aggressive when it was convenient for him, but also sitting them behind ruins as more a potential threat if my opponent moves out. Because
right.
their movement, they can cover so much of the board. You sort
Mhm.
of look at them and go, well, pick your direction, and you're either going to cop a keeper or beast and ogle, your choice.
Okay. So you had a major victory. What was your overall team score for round one?
So for round one, we um, I'll have to check.
Well, I mean, but you
Uh,
guys won, I assume.
we had three wins and
Okay.
one minor loss for round one.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds like a solid victory then, because you said you only had
yeah,
45 points to win, and you got 20 of it. So
yeah, and then we had our AdMech player also received a 20.
wow, and that was supposed to be the
And our
bad matchup.
yeah, and our Marine player, I believe, got about 18.
Okay,
Um,
that's
which when we discussed it and we were talking to the guys that were newer into team play,
mhm,
we were like, Josh can take the foot off the throttle, because we've secured the win, and it kind of lets you relax a little bit into the game.
definitely.
And I could see him definitely, pull it back a little bit, and his opponent got the minor victory, which is fantastic. But when the results already locked in,
Mhm.
you can conserve that energy.
Okay, well that's cool. That's a good round one victory now. So let's go to the first Art of War team. So James, what was your matchup like with the Necron?
So round one, I was paired up with Lachlan and just his Harlequin army, Frozen Stars, I think it
Ooh,
was.
yeah. Okay.
And just an absolute truckload of Harlequin troops with a
Yeah.
mix of weapons, swords, kisses, caresses, a few fusion pistols put in there. He
Yeah.
had some death jesters, a solitaire, a couple of troop masters, and some death jesters, I think. So a real sort of heavy foot Harlequin list.
So not what
Uh,
you were designed to go against.
no, it was a pretty solid yellow for me,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
matchup. Um, we both had a really lot of OBSEC in our lists.
Mhm.
We both took board control secondaries,
Hmm.
but he took While We Stand, We Fight for his with his
Character.
sort of characters and protected those sort of in his backfield, and he was able to sort of screen out with just hordes of Harlequin troops. So I guess the biggest challenge for me was trying to screen out objectives and score as many points as I can,
That's tough.
while he's sort of bouncing in, doing
Yeah.
damage, bouncing out, bouncing to the next target, sort of picking off my army piecemeal at its weakest points.
Right.
I
It's
still
hard to
managed
screen
to
army.
score.
I mean, he
Yeah,
can
yeah,
move wherever he wants. So
that's right. Advance and charge, fall back and charge.
flip,
Um,
jump everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, I tried late game to gank his characters by using the wraiths to sort of all fall back and go for them.
Jump on him. Yeah.
Yeah, but he used that stratagem where he had his three characters together, where they can pop
Yeah.
a stratagem, a
They all
redeploy somewhere on the
yeah,
board. Yeah,
teleported. Yeah. That's annoying. What
and
was
that
your
was the end of that.
secondaries?
So I took the mission secondary, which was for overrun. I
Okay.
took scramblers and engage on all fronts, and he
Yeah.
took engage on all fronts, scramblers, and while we stand, we fight.
Wow. So none of you took any kill secondaries. Wow. Okay.
No, I wasn't going to do enough damage to that list to
Yeah.
really make it viable.
Yeah. Your close combat units just simply aren't fast enough to. He will only engage if he wants to. Most likely.
That's right.
So
I didn't have a lot of shooting. Most of my damage is multi-damage. It's
right.
2 damage or 3 damage.
Yep.
And yeah, he just had a buttload of attacks. So
Yeah, and if he
it
makes
was
those
pretty
4-up
rough.
saves, then yeah, your big attacks don't really do much. So, was there a way that you? I assuming the game didn't go as well then.
So it ended up 59 to 77.
Uh huh.
So ended up 13-7 in their favor.
Okay.
So, but it was once again one of those games where I was able to get at least some points on the board, and sort of, if other people were struggling in the team, still put some sort of score up, which
That's
I guess
good.
was the plan for that matchup. And
Yeah.
it was our only sort of basically Eric managed to get us paired sort of exactly where we knew we were going to get paired into the matchups.
Okay. Well, that's good. I mean that's the benefit of a team tournament, is that losing the game isn't the end of it, because maybe that was a matchup that was really really difficult for someone else, and you got some points out of it. So
Yeah, that's right.
that's good. All right. So Aaron, what was your matchup like with your Orks?
So for round one, I was playing Matthew Kinnaman. I was playing Thousand Suns. It was a bit of a mix. It was T-Suns along with Unkillable Lord of Change, Pink Horrors, and then you had Aron, some Sorcerers, and 2 big bricks of Rubric Marines, and then a brick of the Rubric Terminators. So there's quite a bit of firepower coming out of the list in terms of stuff that does pick up orcs.
Always, yeah.
But at the same time, I guess not enough. And also, once combat's made, then it starts to get pretty difficult.
You can't
So
fight back in combat. So
yeah, exactly right. So the game plan was always to go hard and try and tie up as many units as possible, and just try and stem the flow of primary scoring, because it was the mission was overrun. So it was a hold 2 objectives for 5 points, hold 3 for 10, and hold more for 15. So my game plan there was to obviously hold my 3 as best as possible and put pressure on him. So on turn 1, I just moved up, held the mid board. His turn 1, he decided instead of doing any actions like raise banners or anything like that, he would put all his firepower into my army, and also move up the Lord of Change to get off a mental interrogation score on Gazgal. And what that allowed me to do was essentially turn 2, I kept moving forward with the Orks and was able to surround the Lord of Change with 1 squad and get onto one of his home objectives. And then on the other flank, I was just moving forward and managed to get lots of boys on the other objective into combat, and just essentially take that away. So I was able to nullify his primary. The boys fighting twice were able to bring down the Lord of Change, which was awesome. And then from there, it kind of cascaded into just denying all primary points for him that game, and just scoring all the secondaries I could. So 12 points on engage in all fronts, the 10 for scramblers, 12 for assassinate. So
was that Lord of Change charge on first turn or second turn?
It was my second turn.
Okay, he moved up first turn. Okay,
yeah, he moved it up, and probably was fairly confident that it wouldn't take the beating that it did. It did take, fighting twice with the boys squad. I think about 18 of them or so were in combat with it. And he made good saves on the first round, and then on the second round, it didn't hold up as well. But when you've got 90 kind of attacks, give or take, going into him, winning on 5s, you're still converting some fairly decent numbers through. So
sure, but were they within range of Gazgal? Yeah,
they were.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a lot of attacks, and with exploding 6s and all that good stuff, that can really do a lot of work. So what were the secondaries you picked?
So I took Assassinate, Scramblers, and Engage in all fronts. So usually with my list, I try and take one of the mission ones. I ended up I could have taken the mission one, and it would have been an issue, but generally try and take at least 2 of the secondaries that don't require me to engage with my opponent, or me scoring those are independent of how I choose to interact with my opponent. So if he would have went first, would it have been worse? Like, how would it have been worse for you? Because Thousand Suns going first, they have those the new stratagem that allows them to basically shoot you twice. Yeah,
during their turn. That's a lot of bolter shots.
It would have been uncomfortable. But if I would have just basically crawled up the board a little bit differently. So I think on his first turn of shooting, when he was able to shoot everything, which was the bottom of turn 1, it was probably about 35-ish to 40 orcs that were picked up.
Okay.
And so when you consider that I've got 150, and with Green Tide 180,
right?
It would, even him going first, it wouldn't have been enough to.
Yeah, because he just has no counterpunch to your orcs.
No, once they get in, it's
he has no units that can threaten them in close combat, which is definite issue. Okay, so I imagine that was a pretty big win though. Then if you denied him primary on every turn.
Yeah, so the total VP was 89 to 29, which translated into a 20-0.
So it's pretty similar to Dan's game. Okay. Okay, so overall, James took a loss, but you took a big win. And how the other two guys do in general?
Yeah, so Steve Wade, the White Scars, went into the other team's custodial player, and he did really well. Walked away with a 16-4 victory.
Okay.
And Eric went into the kind of the bogey matchup for our team in that one, which was the Dark Angels. None of us really wanted to go into it. I was confident that I wouldn't be killed. James wouldn't have been killed, but it was more about they're very difficult to shift,
right?
And with the new rules, and they kind of operate, I guess, independently of what the other army's doing. So
the Deathwing Knight list.
Sorry, yeah. So yeah, it had Deathwing Knights, and it had the big brick of just Deathwing Terminators, Talon Master, Plasma Inceptors. There was enough Plasma Inceptors in there to kind of make me hesitant to want to be matched into it. So
move up, yeah, okay,
yeah. And Eric did exactly what Eric does, which is take that awkward matchup and score a 13-7 win, which was exactly what the team needed in terms of just nullifying that Dark Angels list.
Yeah. So so what was your team score for that round? Do you know?
56-24.
Okay. So both you guys won pretty significantly there in round one. So we're going into round two. You guys feeling pretty good about your matchups. Both Art of War teams are winning. So let's go back to James there. Well, what was the strategy for round two then for you?
So round two was probably our hardest matchup for the tournament, going into the Art of Milk, which was led by Hayden Walduck.
Okay.
And I got paired into Imperial Guard, Astra Militarum.
Yes.
For what we thought would be a pretty green matchup for me. The army was 2 Demolisher tank commanders, Manicores, a couple of Heavy Flamer Chimeras, and then just a whole heap of bodies. Some Scions to be put in deep strike with plasmas, the odd plasma gun, the odd melty gun thrown in there. The plan for that matchup was essentially just dive into him, wrap as much stuff up as you can, tag as much stuff as you can, and just bully him out of sort of my table half, essentially, and just score.
Yeah.
He ended up first turn. I sort of took some poor secondary choices and didn't deploy probably as effectively as I could. I went a little bit too aggressive. He won the roll-off for first turn. I used my free sort of 6-inch move to hide. But then first turn, he killed like a third of my army. So
those Demolishers?
The Demolishers and the Manicores.
Yeah.
They took a unit of Wraiths, a unit of Destroyers, and then picked the odd model off the other units as well. So that really hurt.
Well, those Demolishers, they can get like what? They get max shot. They can get like 12 shots, right?
Yeah, and they were Vestroyan, so they were hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s.
Plus 6-inch range,
Yeah, firing twice, so it was pretty nasty.
What was your, you said you picked wrong secondaries. Why was that?
Yeah, so I picked Scramblers, and I probably should have chose Banners instead. Just because he was able to screen me out of his deployment zone.
It's tough to get in there.
And it was really a poor choice. He saw me make the sort of last-ditch effort to get one of my few infantry units into his deployment zone, and he would just basically pick off all my infantry, and once he did that, it was over. I was never going to score Scramblers.
Well, you didn't have that many infantry to start with. So I imagine those Manicores just started annihilating warriors and scarabs. So
yeah, I used a last-ditch effort to throw some Lich Guard up with the Veil of Darkness and try to sort of sneak in, just hope that their durability would get him across the line. But he had so much firepower, he just picked him off. Yeah,
that's unfortunate. Yeah, those are kind of matchups where if you roll that first turn, then you can really use your mobility and jump over some guard, get some tanks maybe, or kill most of his infantry, or the Demolisher just picks you up.
But primary was pretty close, so we both scored the same for primary, so 35 each.
That's pretty good.
But I only got 4 for engaging all fronts.
Oh,
But I did score 12 on the mission secondary.
what was that?
The data mining one.
Okay, so for objectives. Okay.
Yeah, but I lost out on Scrambler. So if I would have taken banners, I probably would have got another 9 to 12 points for that over the
Right.
course of the game.
Yeah, because if you were getting the mission secondary, then you were probably getting banners too. Or you
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
So it ended up 61 to 81 in his favor, which turned out to be 13-7.
That's not a bad loss. It's
not a bad loss.
It's almost a tie. So.
And that's what the list is designed for, basically.
Yeah,
it's just
right.
not to get wiped off the board.
Yeah, especially after that first turn sounds super brutal, but you're able to score the primary. That's a bit surprising considering all the guards should be able to run and take you off those objectives. But it's a solid performance despite that horrendous first turn. It sounds like.
Yeah.
So you would have. So if you would have took banners, you probably would have got a draw. Then it sounds like, or very similar.
Yeah, and I made some minor like deployment areas and just left some units hanging, but it was a great learning experience. I'll give it that one.
Of what not to do against demolishers firing 12 shots.
That's right. Yeah.
So we're gonna jump back down to Dan. So Dan, because I'm trying to not have people wait too long before they talk. So Dan, what was your round to like your matchup?
Oh, mate, we were against the Globo Gym Cobras, and they strike hard without mercy.
They do.
No, there was so they were led by Liam Hackett, and they had Ben Warrior on Necrons, Liam Hackett on Orks, Zach Morgan on Grey Knights, and Brent Piggott on Death Guard. So Liam, I've got a lot of respect for him as a player. He's very crafty with what he does with his orcs. So I was worried for 2 of our more inexperienced players in that matchup, and basically got the matchup that I wanted, where I put Josh into Liam. I also managed to get the AdMech into the Grey Knights again. Yep. So he was confident going into that matchup, but then our poor Marine player Paul, he got the Necrons, it was a Praetorians Necrons list, so it was actually very good against Marines. And as the other team laughed and told me, that was their matchup that they wanted. So that was a faux pas on my part. I failed in my job as a captain on that one. But I took the 60 Plague Marine list, with all the characters buffing the Plague Marines, which is another list that a lot of our players didn't want to come up against.
Yeah, that's a grindy list.
Yeah, very, very tough list. And I was confident that I was the only one that could take that list and kind of have a game plan against it, as I've played it a fair bit. So if you want me to break down that game.
Well, yeah. So it's a very grindy list. I imagine it's not very action packed on his end. He sort of probably tried to survive. What was your secondary strategy against that kind of list?
So once again, I took quarters, I took banners, and I took mental interrogation.
Okay, so
see a little bit of a theme going here. But basically, what we were in quarters for the deployment. So basically, I forced him to decide where his Plague Marines were going to go. I got first turn in that one, pushed the keepers out to left flank again, but stayed at 18-inch range out from his Plague Marines, and basically just bombarded them with the psychic powers. So Purveyne of Slaanesh, which is a D6 per model, causes a mortal wound. The smites and things like that, and I was using morale against his units, his bigger squads, and basically just started picking him apart. And then he moved up, started to
Shoot
sort
you.
of
Yeah.
move towards the center. His grenade strat was out of range, so he couldn't utilize that, which was his biggest damage
Yeah.
outlet. I probably pulled the trigger a little bit early and went in with the keepers, followed by the beasts as well, and all but wiped out 2 of the Plague Marine squads. And then I had the Bloodletters come down, and as true to their form, they failed their 3d6 charge twice. Couldn't even use my Gaze of Fate reroll because
If you're
they
gonna
just rolled
fail,
1s and 2s.
if you're gonna fail big. That's pretty big.
Oh, it was an absolute coach killing moment. I was sitting there just going, "You guys just needed to make the charge to block the grenade strat.
You had one job.
One job,
That's
one job, and I was ropeable." But
Oh,
so one Plague Marine squad was free. They were down to about 18, 19 models,
down
and
to
they,
they start at 20.
yeah, yeah, I know. They were still at pretty well full strength, um, and they opened up with their grenade strat and managed to wipe out the 8-man B squad and the 5-man B squad.
Ooh.
It was I've never seen anything like it. I
Well,
just took so many wounds.
because the grenades, they do what? 2 straight damage, and then they do mortals on like a 5 or something?
Yep,
Yeah.
and he
With like
rerolls all wounds.
18 D6 shots. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it hurt my soul a little bit. But all in all, he took Assassinate, which it was a mistake. He had banners as well, and I kept him to 1 banner and picked it up later in the game. But to his credit, Brent played out that game very well, and he managed to get 1 point. So he managed to get me to a 19.
okay.
And then I was looking across the tables and realized that the points were starting to get a little bit too close. And
Oh,
our AdMech player got a 19 against the Grey Knights.
wow.
And then our Marine player went down 18-2.
Ooh. So you had at that point, you were at like a 41 or
Yep. And then
40. Yeah.
Liam, in normal Liam fashion, managed to get a 20 on Josh.
Oh, wow.
So we drew 40-40.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I look it.
Wow.
the-
Huh.
I broke it down with Josh after we had a chat about it, and he was just like, "Mate, he made the charges that he needed to make, and he pushed hard and did damage where he needed to, and you just can't predict some of those things." Like I went in
Yeah.
thinking I understood that. I just thought Josh's list, it was almost near impossible to get a 20 against that type of list.
Yeah.
But once again, Liam with he had scrap jets and mega knobs, and
Yeah.
it
All
was
sorts of
it was a list that was all over the place.
random
He had
orcs.
three
Well,
shock attack guns.
so yes, it's true that he went down pretty hard on the scoring, but you know what? All your bloodletters had to do was get 1 point. They had to make one charge and get 1 point.
Mate, you know how to drive the knife in. I was cursing that bloodletter unit. I was like, I'll never take them again. And then I write a list and they're in the list again. So I can't drop them.
Really good, but then if they don't do the one thing, they're absolutely useless.
Oh, it's yeah. And everyone goes, How do you fail? How do you fail an 8 on 3d6? And I was like,
You.
I've done it. I've done it plenty of times
It's
now.
annoying. It's annoying. That's well, that's it's better than a loss, I guess, a draw.
To be honest, I wasn't unhappy with the result. It I learned a lot coming out of the matchup in terms of how I should be doing my pairings a lot more.
Okay.
Because this was the first time me doing a captain's role and sort of deciding all the matchups, and it's the hardest lesson I had as a player was I'm not piloting the lists. Other people are piloting the lists,
Right.
and you need to have a more concrete choice of secondaries with your players, and basically talk them through the matchup and find out what secondaries they're going to take.
Yeah.
And you can be like, hey, look, maybe that's a little bit of a risk. Maybe you should just go a safer option. We only need a couple of points from you to take out this round. Also on that is always be prepared that players can surprise you with lists. Like I didn't expect the Necron matchup to go the way it did, and I came out of it going, well, I came out with a draw, but I will never downplay a player or a player who's very proficient with that list.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
It's a common issue. Those who jump from army to army based on how they are in the meta, they can often do way worse because then sticking with maybe an army from a few months ago that was popular, but they're really good at it. They know how to play that army and its weaknesses. So that's cool. So you're able, after you know the matchups, you're allowed to talk with each other and determine the secondaries
no. You would
beforehand.
work that out beforehand.
Okay.
Because as the day runs, you kind of need to get straight onto it and start deploying.
Right.
You've only got the 2.5 hours for a round time.
Oh, okay.
And so players are pushing pretty quickly. The really exciting thing, and the thing that I was really proud of, is all of my players finished their games. They all pushed it out.
Nice.
We all played pretty quickly and efficiently. But yeah, that secondary choice where you turn up to a table, you're talking with your opponent, and then this epiphany comes into your
Mhm.
mind where you go, like I'm going to take this secondary, and it's you not going in there with a concrete idea of what is expected of you in a matchup.
Yeah, that can really throw the whole plan if
Mm.
if you don't focus on what you need to do, not necessarily what you want to do. So,
Yeah.
okay.
But hey, we got deducted out of War One by doing a draw, so I'm cool with
Okay.
that. I'm all right with that.
So, so Aaron, so what was your matchup like then for round 2?
So by this point, I was actually getting a taste for Demon Blood, and got matched into another Demon matchup. But I guess to summarize how our round was looking, so we went into this round against a team aptly called the Art of Milk, and there's a lot of sort of in jokes that go into that particular team and their reason for calling it that. But on paper, we were looking at this and we actually matched into this team. This was going to be our hardest round potentially, with how the matchups were looking for list v lists. In terms of pairings, we came out very favorably after actually going through the pairings process. So that we got our best outcome in terms of the pairing process. So we lost the roll off, and Eric threw himself up, and they paired the AdMech list into him, which was ideal. And then they put out their Demons player, to which Eric matched me into. And then the 2 Marine players of Hayden Waldock and Stephen Wade had to play each other. And then that left James and Justin, which he's gone through that matchup. So ideally, that worked out very well for us because we saw James's match as a positive for us. We knew that the Steve and Hayden game was probably going to potentially go either way, but Steve was pretty confident. Eric was confident that he'd be able to etch a small win out against the AdMech, and I was feeling quite confident against the Demons list, which was very similar in some ways to Dan's list, but kind of lacked a couple of the key components that would potentially make it threatening to me. It didn't have the snail, which would increase the output of all the beasts. He didn't have the Flames of Zinch and potential shooting options. And he only had 1 keeper. So there was, while it was a highly resilient, good Demons list, it wasn't going to have the output to be able to really challenge the 150 Orks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
What were your secondaries against him?
Yeah, so it was Vital Intelligence, which is an excellent mission for my list. So I took Deploy Scramblers, Engage on All Fronts, and Data Intercept. And again, it's another hold 2 for 5 points. And the way that it's like a Vanguard style deployment, and you've got 1 objective in each deployment zone, and then the other 4 objectives are all in no man's land, spread diagonally.
Yeah, that's the weird diagonal one where people have to do some math to figure it out.
It's an excellent mission for this list, especially up against an army that doesn't have any guns.
Oh yeah, you just swarm into the middle and sit there.
Yeah, exactly. So I basically went first. I advanced everything up. I was sitting on 5 out of 6 objectives on turn 1, and I stayed there.
Yeah, I don't see how if he doesn't have shooting, he's not gonna be able to get you off those objectives. Did he have more close combat, or what did he have to threaten you?
He's got 15 Beasts of Noble. He's got 20 Plague Bearers. He had a Bloodletter Bomb. Like, he had all the standard demon tools. He had the Unkillable Lord of Change, the Keeper of Secrets, and a Great Unclean One with a bell. So there were things there, but once I took the board, Beast hitting on 4s, in units of 5, just not as much output as if there's a snail there, helping them out. And Strength 5 boys really put some hurt on beasts.
Oh yeah, because they're only toughness 5, so you're winning on 4s.
Yeah, it makes a big difference just there, and then just the weight of attacks. So most of the beasts were dead by the end of the game, and I was still exactly where I went in turn 1.
I mean, even 15, if all 15 of those beasts charge 1 unit, I don't even think they kill an entire unit of boys. I mean,
no, it was actually pretty depressing, some of them. So like, even at one point, I think there was out of 5 beasts, D6 attacks, it was average about, almost 20 attacks.
Sure.
And I'd pick up 6 or 7 boys.
Yeah, because they don't have, because I mean, that 3 to 4 plus weapon skill is a big deal. I mean, they're only hitting half the time, wounding 2/3 of the time.
Wounding's not bad because they reroll all wounds.
Okay, so they're wounding quite a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, unlike most things, I get an armor save, which is nice.
And a feeling of pain, pain boy, yeah.
Yep.
So that's and if you can't kill a unit of boys, I mean that's not good.
So again, 0 primary for Rory. Cool. So I was able to just strangle the points out of that list, and it ended on VP 91 to 29, which was 20-0. Yeah.
So you guys, so what was the final? So we know that. So what was the final team score?
Yeah, so very, very close rounds. So James had his 7 to 13 small loss against Justin. I had 20-0 against Rory. Our Marine player actually went down and went down 0-20. And then so that was essentially, it was left on Eric's shoulders to pull out a big win as well. And he managed to pull something out of his hat and get a 20-0 against the Mechanicus list. So we ended on 47 to 33. So we only won the round by 2 points. So, but this is back to my point earlier about how every point counts. Like, James's 7 points in that game made all the difference. Right.
Like I said, we've stressed this before, is that in a team tournament, you don't need to win every game. You just need to stick to the plan. And the plan was to not get annihilated. And it's tough to table that kind of Necron list. It's just too resilient. But on the Eric's matchup, I play Admech, and one of my friends plays Sisters. Admech has a significant problem killing a horde of little Sisters units. So it's actually pretty tough to out-primary them, and that's probably what happened, I'm assuming.
I mean, it's pretty tricky as well. I know that in that particular game, one of the Melter squads that Eric had was outflanked. It comes out, it pops out, it just shoots something. Oh, Miracle Dice, that's 6 damage. You know, like it's really efficient. And in a game of dice, when you can just manipulate that, it starts. You can set up things that just don't have a chance of failure, which I think is pretty interesting.
Important. No, it's important to make sure the probabilities in your favor as much as possible. So you guys, I imagine Art of War Team 1 is in first place going into round 3?
I think we're actually sitting in second place going into.
Wow.
Yeah, there was another team that had some pretty big wins and was actually slightly above us on the secondary points to rank us. So
I've got to ask one question. How Keller, how was your back after carrying that second round?
It was pretty good. I was pretty happy with the overall result. I was worried there a bit when they sort of said this is going to be a green matchup for you, and I didn't deliver. So I was a little bit worried there.
Yeah, but then it worked out. So that's good. It's good. So why don't we? So Aaron, why don't we just go into round 3 then? You're facing the top place team. Who are they?
So we went into that one against Time to Clap, which is an awesome team of dudes from Toowoomba, which is about an hour and a half drive at least from Brisbane. They made the trip up, and they'd had a great run through the event so far, and we went into them looking at went through the pairings. We were pretty confident that if we got the right pairings, that we'd be able to do pretty well. In that pairings process, we finally won the roll-off.
It's good.
Which, again, I think that was Keller coming to the party, because Eric let us roll on the previous rounds, and Steve and I both delivered ones, so we definitely lost those roll-offs.
I mean, that's not really how dice work, but that's okay.
Yeah. So their first put up was they put up their captain Jay with the Death Guard, which Eric jumped on with his sisters, because again that was one of the ones that we were really hoping that Eric would be able to take, just because the sisters are so resilient and tricky that you'd be able to just get a small win.
And Death Guard don't have the damage output to really deal with all those little units that can get invulnerable saves or just hard to shift.
Exactly. And so then we put up our Marine player, and they had a really interesting Knights list, which was, I think it was 9 small of the Forge World Armiger class Knights.
Okay.
Moriax,
yeah.
Moriax, yeah. And they had a pretty decent Marine shooting weapon. It's D6 shots with blast, and the damage is increased if your armor saves 3 up or higher.
Oh.
So there was 9 of them. There was the Unkillable Lord of Change and some Nurglings against.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So against our White Scars list, and then their Sisters list, which was more of a shooty style Sisters list than a kind of like a combat one that Eric's is. I went into that one. And James had a mirror match of metal versus metal, which was pretty cool. So just to summarize my game, it was the quarters deployment one. Yeah. So the old style search and destroy, and my entire deployment zone was just Ork boys. Yep. Like it was just a sea of boys.
Standard.
And yeah, so. The sisters went first, moved up slightly, and then I advanced everything, made it to jump. I think, essentially 4 30 blobs of boys were in combat turn 1, and the sisters player had actually left max coherency on all the 5-man squads, so I was able to get through, wrap, and tag other units. So it got pretty brutal pretty quick. And just again, like there was just too many Ork bodies for any hope of that list to be able to shift them. And I think the end score was 95 to 32, and 20-0. So it was a great mission for the Orks against a list that just didn't really have the tools to do anything about it.
Well, and you start 18 away in that mission too, so or sorry, you can start 18 away if you on the line. But did you take the same secondaries again or similar?
I took engage on all fronts and deploy scramblers, and then I took the mission specific one, which was direct assault, which is just you get 3 points for holding the middle objective. You
don't even really, or you get 5 points for just holding 2 objectives outside his deployment zone.
Yeah, so you get 5 points if you hold the middle and their deployment one.
Theirs, in
their quarter. So again, I eventually got there.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so that's pretty brutal. And do you find that I've seen my friend play Orks a lot, and do you find Gazgul to suffer in that deployment? Because often there's like a ruin in the middle, so Gaz will have to deploy on like the weird side of the board somewhere.
So that specific one, Gaz was like there was that ruin piece in the middle, but I used him as a bit of a fallback option. So he was kind of guarding that middle objective a little bit, and so if anything actually decided to come near it, he would have been able to hit it. In the end, he went off, and I think he chased some mortifiers. And just belted them around.
Okay, well, that sounds like a really solid victory for you. How did the How did the other guys, besides, we'll let James talk about his game, but what did the other two guys' games go?
Eric was grounded out a solid win against the Death Guard, going 16-4. And our White Scars player got a 20-0 against the Chaos Knights.
Yeah. Yeah, those Chaos Knights, they can do a lot of damage to the White Scars, but 3 units of Overcharged Inceptors, I imagine.
Well, yeah, and I mean, using the terrain was good at this event. So Steve played a really smart game and was deployed extremely well. And so there was no shooting targets for it turn 1 for the Knights. And then he slowly came out, took firing lanes to pick away the Nurglings. And then, with the high mobility of the list, hiding behind ruins with infantry and things like that, and then springboarding out with White Scars advance and charge, was just able to, start an avalanche, I guess, of aggressors going into combat, Centurions going to combat, Blade Guard going, and just.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Those Centurions probably demolished those Armigers.
Yeah, I think they they punched the Lord of Change as well into next week. So.
Yeah, I mean that's high strength, high AP, high damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. What about the other? Okay, so Marines. So you got 3 20-0 so far.
2 20s and a 16, and then I'll let James talk to his list.
So you guys have already won. So James is like, whoa, feeling good, feeling good. So what was your matchup like, James?
So I played Matt Hansen's Necron list, which was 2 warrior blobs of 20 with the strength 5 guns, the Gore's Reapers, I think they are. Silent King, 2 Canoptic Reanimators, 2 single spiders, a whole heap of characters, and some scarabs.
Okay.
We both took the same dynasty, so we both had the free 6-inch move. He had double obsec on his warriors. And we both sort of squared up to each other, trying to figure out who was going to get first turn. My plan was, if I got first turn, I was just going to dive straight into anything that had obsec and screen him out off of the objectives and just score as much as I can. And I chose the secondaries to do that. I took the mission secondary for scoring 3 for the middle. So the key, I guess, piece of terrain or key area in this match was the center. So whoever would control the center was going to win the mission, because we both chose that as our secondary. I took one of the Necron secondaries for controlling multiple objectives. And I can't remember the last one, but essentially I won the roll-off to go first. I moved 6 inches forward, and to my surprise, he also moved 6 inches forward.
Wow.
So, our 18-inch deployment is now very, very close to each other.
You're now within, what, 9?
9, yeah. So, he castled up pretty heavily. So he had all these warriors with the Silent King behind them. He had his 2 Canoptic Reanimators on either side, buffing both the warrior units. Canoptic Reanimators was an interesting choice. I didn't really think that was great tech in his list, but
I don't like them either. But
basically what I did first turn is I shoved the Lich Guard and both units of Scorpec Destroyers straight into the closest warrior blob. He did something, he overwatched, which was interesting, and he popped strategy for auto-exploding 6s and 6s auto wound.
Okay.
And then he was just fishing
for 6s,
using the Silent King's reroll to fish for 6s, basically. And he managed to kill, I think, 2 Lich Guard, which I reanimated 1. So at the end of the day, he killed 1 Lich Guard for that. Spent 2 CP or 3 CP on that.
Yeah, Overwatch. I think a lot of players vastly overestimate how common 6s are.
Yeah. So the only thing I was really afraid of in his list was the Silent King, and because he was behind the warrior blobs, I was able just to pin him in his pretty much after where he finished his 6-inch move. I forced him to spend a lot of CP to save that warrior blob. I managed to knock them down, I think, to 4 models, even though they were reanimating on 4s, re-rolling 1s.
Right.
I really managed to do some damage to that. I made him spend his 2 CP to make sure they don't run. So sort of pinned him in there. And then I was able to use the swarms the Wraiths just to basically nab all the other objectives.
Yeah, I think that's that's definitely the issue playing against that many objectives when you're playing against Necrons. Your style of really aggressive Necrons where you can move up first, getting that first turn and really setting the board up for you to score primaries is huge. Like he can't respond with enough firepower or close combat to push you off. He's never going to do it.
So I was using nanomines on the Silent King as well from the Chronomancer to halve his advance and charge rolls.
Wow. Okay.
So I was able to sort of stop him from deciding if he was going to make a sort of a longish charge. It was interesting. I basically just used the race to bounce around his army, pick off what I needed to pick off, wrap what I needed to wrap, destroy what I needed to destroy. And at the end of the game, I pretty much just ignored the Silent King.
Yeah, I've done that too.
Yeah, I didn't really do any damage to him. I think I killed one of his laser beams. That was it by the end of the game. But I pretty much maxed out scoring, so it ended up being 98 to 45.
98 to 45. Wow. Okay. That's actually a lot of points for a 98. Like usually when you see 98s, the opponent's getting like 20 or something. But okay.
Yeah.
So he got a lot of secondaries, it sounds like then.
Yeah. So he still got 20 for primary.
Okay.
And then he got 15 out of his secondaries.
Okay. Oh, so not too much. Okay. So you said one of your cryptex killed one of those reanimators.
Yeah. So I killed both actually. So hit on 3s, wound on 3s.
Yeah.
And then D3 plus 3 damage. Rolled a 5. Next turn, targeted the other one. I rolled a 2. You spent a CP to re-roll it because I was swimming in CP by then. And just rolled a 6. Dropped it off.
5 wounds.
Yeah, I think they're either 5 or 6 wounds.
Okay.
I think there's 6 wounds. They're tough 5-6 wounds, I think.
Okay. Yeah, my problem with those guys is they don't have the character rule.
No.
So and they're like this tall. So it just gets shot.
Yeah, and their aura, you've got to chain warriors back to their aura to use them. They've got to be in line of sight to reanimate them.
Yeah.
They have a lot of limitations for their use.
Okay, so it sounds like you guys got your final round, you pretty much scored maximum, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was good to get a win for the day, which was nice.
No, that's good. Like your whole team scored like what, 80 points? No, like 76 points. Yeah. So you guys overall won the event, but we still have number 2 team. So so Dan, what was your placing for the team going in round 3? Because you got that draw.
Oh no, mate! Before that, I had to bring the boys in. They were all down.
Huddle up.
They were like a draw. They were wanting the win, and so I had to like sum up my best Rocky speech just to get them like drived. So they were just coming out hungry. We were matched up against the Gold Coast 2 team. And then all the jerks lost their bravado when they looked at the Necron list that had a Void Dragon and Nightbringer. And I really have got to be honest, I didn't know what they did. I just got told they ignore invos, and I was like, that's all I need to know. I'll avoid those. And then everyone's turned around to me and gone, well, none of us can deal with it either. So I was like, all right, well, I'll take the Necrons then. Which left our Iron Hands player to take on their Tyrannid player. We had our AdMech taking on a AdMech list, which was Breacher heavy.
Okay.
And then we had our Necron player, Josh, taking on a Ultramarine list. But yeah, so we were confident with the Breachers v Robots matchup. The Robots can very much tank the Breachers' shots, and then the return fire leaves the bots winning that exchange pretty badly. It just takes some very poor rolling from the bot player to basically lose all their bots, or
if you fail those invuln saves. Breachers do D6 damage versus vehicles.
So. Oh, they're not even on their invuln. because he got Shroud Spam, they're on a
Well,
1
only
up.
-1 to the save, yeah, or -2, yeah.
Yeah, so they're on a 3 up, and you know
Yeah.
the breaches are wounding on 5s, and
Mhm.
as soon as the bots start opening up on the breaches just start falling over very
Definitely,
quickly.
definitely.
Um, but yeah, so I had a double Satan list with the double obsec Necron warriors and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
The fella came in and I thought he was sharking me. He's like, "Oh, I don't play this army very often," and then he's setting everything up, and I'm like, "Well, there's not many bad setups here. This guy's probably. I think he's trying to confuse me right now." And he's like, "Oh no, mate, it's just a good game." And then I'm staring down a Nightbringer coming down my front and Void Dragon sort of hanging around the flanks. So it was a bit frustrating. But my grand plan of doing damage across every phase really blew up in my face
Yeah.
because I couldn't wound him.
Hmm.
I shot him with just about everything, and the guy just couldn't fail a 4 up invo.
Oh, wow.
And so this Nightbringer just stayed on 2 wounds
Huh.
for the majority of the game, and then I knocked it down to 1 wound. I was like smiting it, then failing my smites, and I was like, "This guy's not meant to die. This is a problem." Um, and yeah, basically, he went from he got into my beast. My beast managed to get out of that combat because I tried to shoot him off. He survived that shooting phase, and then he went into my snail, and I think he did about 20 odd wounds to the snail, which killed it
Yeah,
very badly.
yeah.
And then he followed it up by going into the Lord of Change, and I think he did about 26 wounds to the Lord of Change.
Yeah, I mean, when you're doing D6 damage and you get no saves and you're wounding on like 2s, it's tough.
It was rough. It was pretty rough. But pretty much what had happened in that game is I'd taken quarters, I'd taken the mission, and I'd taken mental interrogation.
Okay.
Once again, I split the army, forced. Basically, had set it up so I could take out the Sudan. It didn't work out that way, but still managed to get the 20-0.
Wow.
I got 98 VPs to his 38.
Yeah, I mean, Satan aren't good at taking primary. That's part of the issue.
No, definitely. And but what was awesome is the fella got 20 nilled, but man, he was the happiest guy in the world. He was like, "Did you see what my Satan did to you?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, mate. I was there as well. I was taking models off."
Well,
And
yeah,
it was awesome just to see the guy chuffed. Like he was ecstatic
good.
about his models doing stuff. And I look, those models of they, especially the Void Dragon, it's only just
Yeah,
come out, and I
yeah.
could see some serious dollars dropped on that army. So
Oh, yeah.
it was good that he had a good day out.
Well, I think that's important in 40K too. I mean, the amount of money and time you have to spend to get your army ready, I mean, is really high for a game. So
Yeah,
you want to see your models do something, even if you lose. Hey, at least you feel like you got your entertainment money worth, out of those
yeah.
models. But well, the problem with the Void Dragon though, it's a cool new model, but it's all of its abilities are useful against vehicles. Well,
Well, he was popping this strat, the entropic strike, where
right.
he once again ignores my infos, and I was like,
Yeah.
I can't get away from this.
Well, if you were a vehicle though, the Void Dragon would just be crushing you. So, but
Well, that's what our AdMech player said. He
yeah,
was like, "Please God, don't put me into that." He goes,
yeah,
"I've had a good weekend. I don't need to end it like this."
exactly. So you got a 20-0. That's I imagine you just held all the primaries and he wasn't able to get secondaries very much or what?
Yeah, he took the Necron secondary, which is the one where I can't if I'm not in quarters,
Yeah, okay.
and I had quarters,
Yeah,
so I
too
was
much.
definitely going for quarters. And then basically the bloodletters came down in the backfield,
Yeah,
charged his scarabs on the backfield objective, took that off him. That was also worth five VPs for my secondary every turn
okay.
because I was holding the center as well. And then mental interrogation, I just
Sure.
had an abundance of targets that I was
Yeah,
just picking up 3 points from.
okay.
Um, but yeah, outside of that, our Marine player got a 14-6 v the Tyranids. The AdMech was a little bit closer. It was a 13-7, but that was just a shooting gallery.
Yeah,
And then
points, yeah.
And Josh with his Crons, who had been thrown under the bus the whole tournament, finally got his win where he took on the Ultramarines and got a 16-4.
Okay.
And I could see a little skip in his step. He was pretty happy with coming away with a win.
So you guys all won. Okay.
Yeah, we all won. I would say it was the speech. I would say it was just a masterful stroke of captaining of my part.
Inspiring leadership. Is what really got you to push forward.
I think they were pretty off me when I got the draw in the second round.
Well, I mean, if you just would have rolled better for your bloodletters.
Please stop doing that.
So what would have happened if you? But don't you need 45 points to win? So what if it was 41-39 in round 2? Would you still win?
No, I think we still would have drawn. So it wouldn't have changed anything. I would have felt better about my bloodletters.
Yeah,
so that's a personal thing there.
But more points, but okay.
Right. Hey, I sent that guy away floating as well. He was happy with his 19-1.
So you guys, that pushed you into second place.
Yep, we came away with silver. So it looked like another Art of War clean sweep, which was fantastic. Right. We were all having group hugs together and cheering that we didn't have to play each other, and everything went great.
It's true.
And then I did the sin of leaving the event straight afterwards because my wife had a work conference and I had to go.
One of those. Good job. So what you should say in terms of your amazing leadership is that you orchestrated that draw to make sure. Listen, you orchestrated the draw in order to make sure that Art of War team didn't face each other and knock both of your teams out of the running.
James, Aaron, are you hearing this logic?
Yeah, see, because someone else could have jumped over you guys to win, but those bloodletters, their failure was orchestrated by the Chaos Gods. There you go.
It was just meant to be, and I'm glad that someone saw my brilliance.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a really fun event. I know you guys did you did an interview with Goonhammer yesterday or the day before, I think.
Yeah, we sent them all the info, and yeah.
Okay. And then did you guys have a Twitch stream about your event also? I thought I saw something about that. Okay. Yeah. And then you're doing a podcast interview tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking to Nick about Orks in particular.
You're doing that tomorrow? Huh. He's at a GT. Yeah. He'll figure it out.
I'm doing it with someone.
Yeah, right. That's a lot of talking. One thing I've learned that gamers, 40Kers, it's not difficult to find 40Kers who want to talk about 40K and their games specifically. So it's a lot of fun, especially with all you guys joining up. No one has to talk the entire time except me, I guess. So that's cool. So do you guys have another team tournament coming up at all soon?
Yeah. So the next one's in January.
Okay.
It's at the 19th. I think that's right.
Okay.
But I think the teams are mixed up for that one. So a few of us are split up and sort of scattered ourselves amongst a few other teams.
Mercenaries. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. And one thing that I said, a lot of our viewers, well, pretty much all my viewers are probably in the States or maybe Europe. It's probably pretty warm there right now, right? Because it's swapped.
It's like
January. Yeah,
36, 37 degrees, something like Celsius, of course.
Yeah, no, that's pretty warm. Yeah, I mean, I spent some time in the Middle East, and I understand that Celsius. That's that is pretty hot. So okay, so what I want to do after this also, just send me like your, I'll get your Twitch information. I'll put it in the show notes. But if you guys want to, do you guys only have one channel or do you have multiple channels that you post content to?
A majority of our content all goes to Art of War Down Under on Twitch.
Okay. Do you guys do YouTube also, or just Twitch right now?
Just Twitch at the moment.
Okay, cool. I mean, how often do you guys stream right now? Because I know the pandemic makes the schedule different, but do you guys stream pretty frequently, like normal games, or?
Well, Nick is going to be doing our games every event and doing some pre and post show event coverage, and then the rest of us are working towards, practice stream games and other kind of content. It's winding up at the moment.
That's cool. I mean, people love to see that stuff. So I know we've been talking for a while, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. But I'm gonna, like I said, after the show, on the show notes, I'll have links to the tournament, your guys' lists, and if anyone has any questions, I mean, you guys post quite a lot on the War Room as well. So I appreciate you guys all coming by, talking to me. It was a great time, and good luck in your next event.
Thanks,
Cheers, mate. Thank you for having us.